Liberation. Why don't you come to Liberation? So we started the conversation, and he's like, what are you doing? What do you want to do? What do you, and I'm like, I need some freedom. You know what I mean? I need something or whatever, right? So we're having a conversation. We had that conversation. We had about 6 other conversations like that. And so now he's there, and he's CEO and the whole bit, and he's like, what do you want to do? And what do you think needs to change? And so that's why I was laughing at some of your questions, right? And I said, well, there's a couple of departments that need to, be broken out because they should be individual departments in the whole bit. So they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to be able to kind of move throughout all programs. I don't know what that is. I don't know how it is, or whatever the case may be. He's like, development? I'm like, nah. And so I said, I want to do stuff in the community too, and I want to do something, and I want to do recovery, right? And so we talk and the whole bit, and so he, so we have another conversation. He's like, okay, all right, so I'm looking to move you to wherever you want to be, but we got to figure it out, right? We got to figure out money, got to figure out what you want to do in the whole bit. So I'm like, all right, John, that whole, because people talk all the time, right? And so we go to a board meeting, or I think we went to the annual meeting at CCAR. And we're driving forever. It's dark as hell. John's flying and talking and speaking. So John and I go around all the time, and our energies are just kind of and we're just fucking crazy, right? and so Jackie says to me, you got John swearing. He's swearing because of you. He wasn't swearing before. So we're writing, and he says, so Maggie, tell me again about which programs you think need to kind of break apart, or what needs to happen in the whole bit. So we go through this whole thing, and I think the ride was about an hour and a half. And so we're talking this whole time just about this whole thing, right? And so he's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, I just want to be free to kind of work and be able to kind of do my work. So we're writing, and he's like, okay, write up a job description, right? And send it to me. So I write up a job description, I send it to him. He's like, well, now you have to come up with the title. Because I'm like, I don't want to do development. I don't want to be fostering community. I don't want to, I don't want the traditional stuff and the whole bit. So I was like, well, he's like, outreach, and he's like, prevention, and he's like, you're already doing that, and you're already doing it. So at 9 o'clock that night, right? 9 o'clock, right? John calls me up. He's like, I got it. I'm like, what? And he's like, Chief Recovery Officer. Swear to God. That was how it happened.
There you go.
That was how it happened. He's like, Stanford's gonna love it. And it just took off from right there.
That's a big title.
That is a big title.
Yeah, with big title comes.
That's my shit, man.
With big title comes big responsibility.
Yes,
so
it does.
What does
yes,
a CRO do? I know you kind of mentioned it, but
your
day to day.
Yeah. So again, I was looking for freedom, right? And I really wanted. All I wanted was to be able to kind of be throughout all programs, throughout the whole agency, and be able to kind of just do stuff. And so my responsibility is really to foster recovery throughout all programs, and to make sure that everything that we do is recovery friendly throughout the agency. So I get to kind of be everywhere and do everything in all of our programs. That's the best thing you could have.
Sounds pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome.
So you're getting the best title and the best responsibilities.
Yeah.
So why liberation programs?
Because they saved my life.
They did.
So in 1992, I went into treatment at Liberation when it was a co-ed program. And I realized after, I'm sitting over here and I'm like, damn, the one fucking program I forget was Live House. Live House is an inpatient program, 65 beds, 35 are a CSSD, and the other court support services division, and the other 30 are community beds. And so it was co-ed at the time. So I went through Liberation. Of course, I got in a relationship, right? Because that's what you do, right?
Two dead batteries.
So this guy used to say to me, 2 wet noodles in the hospital. That's all that is. You know what I mean? And so I went through treatment there, and I finished up treatment, and lots and lots of I had a lot of criminal charges, a lot of my rap sheet. Yep. And so I went through treatment there, and I left there. I got a job as a housekeeper at a hotel, and then I had to turn myself in. So I went into jail, and when I came out, my sister was working at Liberation, and so she said to me, she said, they're opening up this new program. Tom Kirk was the CEO at the time, and she sent me the application and I applied. And early in when I was in treatment, as we were talking, right, when I was in treatment, I knew that I wanted to do something with women and children, and like I wasn't sure whether I wanted to be with like, because I had some trauma history, and so I was like, well, I want to be the voice for that little kid who I didn't know who to go to, and then I wanted to be the adult that the person came to, and like I got to do both. And so I got hired at the Women and Children's Program, and so I've done every job at Liberation except for John's.
You knocking on that door?
Dude, that's what you do. Why do you think I'm with him all the time? I'm trying to learn how to do CEO.
That's kind of the next stop. I mean, CR. So outside of the fact that liberation programs, I'm always kind of fascinated by this kind of concept that now that you're in a leadership position, right? What are the type of people that work at liberation programs? What's like a common thread? You've got Carol. I mean, I know some people that work here, and they're all amazing people. But what do you look for?
So early in, so we look for people who actually John talked about it, right? Who are compassionate and who's able to demonstrate care, right, and show that they actually believe in the person. So yes, we are trapped by. This one says you need this license, this one says you need this license, this one says you need this license and the whole bit. But I think, again, if I go back to really what it is, it's really recovery coaching.
Yeah.
That really is what it is, right? Because there are none of those barriers that say that you cannot do this. Like, if you're sponsoring, you can't talk to the person, you can't share that at work, and you can't, right? And if you're in treatment, if you're working in treatment and you see you can't do this, you can't. Recovery coaching doesn't put any barriers on anything. Right. You just get to be. You just get to coach.
Yeah. What can I do for your recovery today?
Today.
That's it.
Right.
Tell me, as you've gone through the organization, what's the best advice you've ever received, recovery related or not? What's the most impactful advice you've ever gotten?
To plan for what may happen, and to respond to what does happen. I think that's the best I've gotten. And I was told, make sure that I'm doing something that makes me feel like I'm not working.
Yeah.
And have fun at it.
You got to write your own job description. Yeah. He gave you the title.
The initiation was like pretty tough, right? But like getting there, like sometimes I look around and I'm like, oh fuck, man, this is me. And just recently, someone said to me, like, you're like really like this. I'm like, people see me different than how I see myself, you know? Because I've been through some fucking tough times. I really have, you know what I mean? And so to just kind of be, even when you sent me and you were talking to me about like coming and speaking in the whole bit, like that stuff is just kind of like, I pinch myself sometimes. I'm like, fucking little me crack addict, right? Sitting on the block, like looking at Henry and saying he's the problem because he got his bottle in the bag. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Making a decision that because of the fact that I got a new box out the store every day, and the other person's box had been rained on and stepped on, that I was better off than them, that was me.
So it sounds like it was a little bit of advice, but it's actually life experiences.
Yes.
That's
absolutely.
gotten here.
Absolutely.
Where do you get this energy? By the way,
I think
the energy is totally it's amazing. You know.
You know what I think it is? I think it's really about the fact that I am so fucking grateful that I made it through. Like this could have gone a whole nother direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because all of my group of people who I actually smoked with and drank with, and I don't know if anybody know about Cisco, right? Cisco brought me to my knees. They called it liquid crack, right?
Oh, that's right.
It was like 4 Loco on steroids. That fucking shit was like, I'm telling you. So it's just really just that whole thing around. I'm always like, I wake up and I'll be like, thank you for like giving me another minute to kind of do this, right? And I get my energy from other people who are doing the same thing. Because it didn't have to be like this. It didn't have to be like this. So quick story, right, is the fact that one of the major things that I said when I first got into recovery was if something happens to my mother, don't tell me not to do shit. I'm smoking crack. And in 2012, my mother died, and I didn't have not a thought. Not a thought at all. Oh, I should go smoke. I should go drink. I should go anything. Right? Not even a thought. And I was shocked probably for 6 months that it didn't happen.
Right.
So I'm you know, kind of how it is.
What do you love about liberation programs or your role?
So I love the freedom of my role.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do have to give that to John, because I've been there for 26 years, and I think that I've not been able to be myself fully until he fucking came back.
Really? Awesome.
You know what I mean? I had this, I always felt kind of boxed in, and I was going to do what I needed to do in the whole bit, but I just really, like the last year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
I really get to be me.
Awesome. And when you start your day, what are you hoping to do?
Put a smile on someone's face.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Be the best part of somebody's
That's
day.
it. That's it.
That's awesome.
That's it.
What would you change about liberation partners programs?
I think I would create a recovery coach program within Liberation, and I would probably, absolutely, for on a ratio of 1 to 5, probably I add a recovery coach into every level of program, so that each coach only had 5 people to be responsible for, which means that they could get quality coaching, but at the same time still like be able to kind of keep, like, you know, just like the coaching itself, the fidelity of the whole just really clear.
Got it. So what would you like your legacy to be about? That's it every day.
You know, I was thinking about this. I was at a funeral of a really good friend the other day, and I said, what? When people come here, what do I want? And I said, you know what? I want to be buried with upside down so I can say, kiss my ass.
Ass up.
No, but seriously, I was thinking about that, and I was like, what do I want people to be saying? I wonder what people would be saying, you know? And so I was just thinking about that. I was really just thinking about that, and I wonder, you know,
Like
I think
during your wake.
open.
Oh wait, butt.
Ass up. I think I would like for people to be able to say honestly that they didn't ever have to figure out what I was thinking or what relationship I had with them, because I was true to that.
Right. Amazing. So, we got a room of coaches, some prospective coaches too. What advice would you give us?
I think trust your desire, right, to be a coach, because everyone is the best coach. And I think once you decide that you want to be a coach, you are a coach.
Yeah.
And then make sure you have a coach to support your coaching.
As a follow-up to that, we've got a really very new position, right? What do you think we should be doing as a community of coaches to help improve ourselves, improve the profession?
I think first is to recognize that I think that we tend to be competitive in treatment and coaching and everything. I think first is to recognize that there's enough work to go around and to support one another like this, right?
Yes.
I think that there's so much competition, and the competition is not even genuine competition, right? It's all about trying to find those places and things, and I think it's really about the fact that knowing that together we rise and we could do whatever we need to, and we need to be supporting one another.
Yeah. So you work in an organization that provides treatment, and it's I love the fact that John brought it up, and the fact that, you know, as coaches we need to stay in our lane. Right? You're overseeing all of things. You're in each of the businesses that Liberation Program's involved in, How do you wind up doing that? How do you wind up staying in your lane when, we're not providing as coaches, we're not providing clinical supervision?
Well, again, I think it starts with passion, number one, and I think it's also about supporting. And the staying in the lane part of it really is about the fact that we have to trust our gut.
Yeah.
Right? We
It's
have to
hard,
trust
isn't
our
it?
gut. It is hard.
Really hard.
It is hard. And
Kathy and I
so
were just talking
what I
about-
mentioned over there, and I said that I get the opportunity to wear 3 hats, it's really in practice.
Yeah.
And it's about when I step, and I know I stepped out, asking for help and saying, uh-oh, that doesn't feel right. So if I'm trusting my gut, and I'm really coaching, because of the fact that I know that I'm a coach and I know what I'm doing, I know when I cross over.
Right.
And so if I have a you and a you to be able to turn to, then I can have the conversation with you and say, this just happened. So again, if we're not supporting,
Yeah.
we have to be able to support. Because when we start with the traditional supervision and the trend, then we just lost the fidelity of coaching.
Yeah. It's hard, right?
It's very hard.
Who do you turn to then to make sure that you're supported and trusting your gut?
So I have a coach, I have a sponsor, and I have John, right? I have friends. Jackie is one of them, right? And I have family. I really am spiritually pretty connected. I do a lot of journaling, and I pay attention to me, and I know what I know, and I also know what I don't know. And so it's really about knowing exactly where that line is around that, but it really is about having a coach and being able to kind of stay right within that. And it is difficult to stay within the lane, but as humans, if I give myself permission to be human and make a mistake, I can say, Andy, I think I just made a mistake. Because it's all about how do I bring that around after I make the mistake. Because I'm going to make a mistake, right? So it's about being able to do that. And the example that I gave about the fact that I'm at work and I get to be at work and at the same time I get to coach, right? That's a thin line for me.
Right.
Because I could coach, but at the same time, I'm on the clock. So I also need to be working.
Yeah.
So it comes with practice.
Yeah.
And it comes with really, like I said, knowing what I know and knowing what I don't know. And using those who are ahead of me and who are next to me. And for new coaches, I learn more than I do from someone who's actually gotten status quo and feel like they know everything.
Yeah.
New coaches teach so much.
Sure do. I love this, and also what John said around the concept of ethics and protecting the fidelity of the role. Because there's a lot of people who just don't know what we do.
Right.
In fact, Kathleen and I were talking about ethical considerations that I train, and when I took ethical considerations, I'm like, come on,
What?
you're going to tell me ethics?
Yes.
Really? I'll know it when I see it. I'll trust my gut. It's shocking how much it comes up. When there's money, there's objectives, and they're not always my objective, right? And that's what's I think a couple things is a lot of the gut comes from just being in recovery. And doing the work that you're doing.
Right.
But for new coaches, it's tough to actually see it. Like, wait a second, the gophers and chauffeurs thing.
Right.
We're asked to do a lot,
Yeah.
and pushing back when somebody's paying you pretty hard.
Right. Right.
So the fact that you're got the title that you have, as great as the title is, and the fact that you're able to spread that throughout the organization, I think is really, really rewarding. What should we know about Maggie? Outside of just work.
Well, so I think that you get what you get, right? You're not going. You know what I mean? I got what I got, right?
Right.
You're not gonna catch me where you got to figure out exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
What I exactly mean there, right? And so again, so I'm a parent. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm an aunt, I'm a friend, I'm a recovery coach. I have a recovery coach. I'm a sponsor, I have a sponsor. I'm an executive, I have an executive. But most of all, I'm a human being who actually knows that for every person who actually can use a coach, I've always needed a coach, right?
Mhm.
And so I've been there. And so there's no one who could tell me anything about where they are that I can't identify with having not been there,
Right.
you know? And they say, you know, that people in recovery are people who is the only person who will lie in the gutter. And so I'm talking about me. And because of the fact I put my head on the sidewalk, I say I'm doing better than you because I'm not lying flat.
Right.
My head is up a little higher, you know? And I think recovery coaching does help to even the playing field.
Sure does.
Because if you're coming from that place
Mhm.
of coaching, like that's really the operative word.
Mhm.
Because recovery is in everything, everywhere, you know?
Right.
And if you're able to tap into that and be true to that and take care of, when I take care of myself, I have
Glad
a
you
good
brought that up.
read.
Yeah.
I have a good read.
We're only as good as we are. Right?
Can't give what I ain't got.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's what I tried to say, but
Yeah.
I can't give what I don't have. What's your what you mind talking about your own personal program of recovery?
Absolutely. So, 28 years long-term recovery since just this month, February 6th, celebrated 28 years. So I use a coach, I use a sponsor, I use spirituality, I attend church, I go to work, I take care of myself, I go to 12-step meetings, I travel, right, Jack?
Yep.
Lots of traveling, lots of self-care. You know, I'm pretty good with making sure. So I know this is a whole nother topic, right?
All right.
You know what I found out? Brene Brown is at NatCon.
I thought you would like that.
Okay,
What's that kind?
that's the conference we're going to. I'm going with John to Texas.
Awesome.
National,
NACOM, the National Council for Behavioral Health.
yeah,
That's
It's a
right.
great conference.
Austin, Texas, in April. So what was I saying?
You're talking about your own personal program of
Oh,
recovery.
so yeah,
Now we know
I
it
am,
includes
so
Brene
I
Brown.
am, yeah, so, yeah, so I started off, and I was really, when I first started off, it was gung-ho about like the 12-step program, you can't do this, you can't do that, and if you want what I have, you have to do what I did, and you have to da-da-da, and the whole bit, and saved my life, the rigidity around that whole thing, and, worked with the sponsor and did that whole thing. And so I did that for about 15 years. I have been a coach for about 8 years now, maybe a little bit more. And so thank God for that, because I was able to, when I became a recovery coach, I was able to actually see the difference. Because my first question was, how is this actually going to be something helpful if you're saying that a person does not have to be free of drugs and alcohol?
Mhm.
How is that possible?
Sure.
Right? And so there was that. And everything that has happened in my life, I've needed every minute of every day of my clean time to get to that next spot. Like
Yeah.
I needed to be there clear enough to be able to get that. And so I did that, and then the recovery coaching. Spiritually, I had actually done some stuff back and forth with the whole kind of, the God concept, and whether, what my grandmother said and the whole bit, so I'm not going to do any of that at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, no, I'm not going to do the A's because they're talking about God, so I'm not going to do that. So I rebelled and did that, did a little smart, a little rational recovery, a little, the whole thing. I just ran around looking for shit. But I didn't know what I was looking for. You know what I mean? I didn't know what I was looking for.
But isn't that,
And then-
wait, as a isn't that fun though?
Yes, it is.
Like,
It is.
Recovery is an
just
adventure. Like, who gives a shit?
That's right.
Try a bunch of
Yeah,
stuff. Sample
yeah.
and sample until you find out.
Didn't
what
have
works.
any kids, didn't have to worry about any kind of shit. I just up and kind of like, you know what I mean? I was all over the fucking place.
awesome.
Like, I was like, you think this is something? I was a fucking wreck. And so, went through that whole stuff and the whole bit. And so I had a sponsor who actually was a lay pastor. And she was very spiritual and very quiet, just the opposite of me, just like, you know what I mean? And she would say things to me like, dear, just, I was like, I don't want to become too spiritual. I need to curse every now and then. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do, and the whole bit, and went through that and worked through the steps and did all of that stuff and the whole bit. And then when I learned about the recovery coaching, the ethical consideration and the spirituality part of it was really the most attractive for me, you know, because when it comes to the ethical part of it, it's almost like it's every little piece of everything. And it's either is or it isn't. So it's just this thin line around everything
Sure
of looking at that. And so that's the whole difficulty around that. And so, you know, I came through, I did a lot of kind of damage. I was in jail all the time and the whole bit, so I got a pardon. I went through and I did that and the whole bit. And I'm a product of CCAR, right? That's where I got my training. Mike Askew helped me with my part. He signed off, he got it to the board, and you know, that whole thing, and did that.
So
And so when the guy calls me up, right, for the pardon, so I listen, I got like some funny shit that has happened in my life. And when I go, so I put the application in and the whole bit, and the guy calls me up and he says, oh, this is, all I heard was officer. This is officer. I was like, did I do anything? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he's like, can I speak to Maggie? I said, can I tell her who's calling? so he's like, you know, then he says it in the whole bit, and he's like, you know, from the Board of Pardon and Parole and the whole bit. So I go back and I'm like, this is Maggie, with a whole nother voice, right? And, you know, so he called, but that's kind of how, you know what I mean? I've never been sure about shit because, like, I could have been a part of it. Some shit could have went down and I might have been there. So, you know, so I check you know, I still kind of do that, like, ooh. Yes. And so he called up and he said to me, he said, just received your application, just want to let you know it's a well done application, and there are 3 possible outcomes. Either you get denied, it can get expedited, or you can ask to come in for an appeal. He said yours look like that, it could be expedited, and we'll let you know. So we'll be calling you back. I said, do you know when you're going to call me back? Right? I said, you know myself, so I can guess on the fucking call. Dude called me back in 2 weeks. I did the same shit. This is officer. I stopped listening after officer. I'm like, did I do anything? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm right to like think about, like, it could have been me. So he called me back and said, you know, just want to let you know your pardon was expedited. You got a full pardon. Everything is taken care of. You don't have to come in about. He said, and so in about 4 weeks you'll get it. He said, but don't start writing down that you never got arrested yet, right? So I'm all excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna get my pardon. I'm gonna put it in my office. I'm gonna put it in a frame. That shit came and had all my charges on it. I said, oh no, I'm not framing this. I ain't doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? But those are the types of things. So I get to kind of see that and remember, like, that was then and this is now. You know, and looking at just like how life has really just unfolded for me, you know? And, you know, I got a 25-year-old daughter, you know, that sometimes I like her, sometimes I don't. And I said to her, you know, you want me to help you get a place? She's like, no, money, I want to stay here. Damn! But like, I love her. I appreciate it. She said to me this morning, she's like, you think John got a job for me? I'm like, what? Because John offered her a job when she went to college, and she still remembers it, you know? And so it's just really like my life is just really very, very full. And, you know, I'm just happy to be at school. Yeah, went back to school. Jackie and I went to school together. Went back to school in 2013. Went to school for 2 years, got a bachelor's. The next day after we graduated, we went to social work school, finished that up, and then come June, we are going into the doctorate program.
Outstanding.
And I'm a senior citizen.
I wouldn't know it.
Maggie, tell them how much it costs.
$62.
How's that possible?
Seniors.
Really?
Dr. Maggie.
Dr. Young?
That's it.
You're not going to get a whole highfalutin on us when you
Yeah,
become a
right
doctor.
now. No, I'm gonna still be around here constantly doing the same shit. Yeah. Well, it's something in some read says that, you know, that it's okay to keep your head in the sky, but your feet need to be firmly planted on the ground with everybody else. That's where I like living.
I want to see if anybody's got any questions for Maggie. No questions?
So let's do it, guys.
We got one.
No, I have a comment. I'm not one of you. I'm driving a statement. I'm her chauffeur today.
Oh,
But,
nice.
Go for it,
I'm
chauffeur.
so glad that I came. You are a gift.
Thank you.
You are a gift.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I'm just so glad to be here with all of you. But
This is why I do it. I'm telling you that hearing something like that, because again, I don't see myself.
you're so real, lady. I won't forget you. We have to exchange phone numbers or something.
Okay. Should I give it to your wife or you?
I'm a senior citizen too, but
You guys will have to take this offline.
Hi,
question,
Laura.
Mike?
My name's Laura. I just want to thank you for everything you shared tonight. I'm not quite a senior citizen, but I qualify for my AARP.
I had that 10 years.
I
Youngster.
felt like I had nothing more to give, and that it was too late. And watching you has been an inspiration that it's not too late. So thanks.
That's
what this is about. Hi.
Hi, I'm Leanne. I just want to say you're truly an inspiration, especially, when I hear that, you come from around here, you've been incarcerated, and
A lot.
yes. Yes,
Yep.
and I was incarcerated. I just did, a 3-year bid, and, you have a lot of time to think when you're in there, and and it's I had a lot of time to think, was I gonna be bitter for the rest of my life, or was I gonna turn my life around, and when I came out, C-Car was what, Mike and Liz, they just took me under their wing, and they just helped build up my self-esteem, and they sent me to the academy, and all I did when I was in the halfway house was volunteer, just Monday through Friday, 6 hours a day, and thank God, it saved my life, and I see where you sit, and I see how real you are, and you're just such an inspiration to me that, it doesn't matter, it's never too late. You can start any time, and I'm over 50, and it doesn't matter, and then all that matters is that, my kids see me, dust myself off and just try again, and yes, you're truly an inspiration, so thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Miss Maggie, you definitely are, I want to say you definitely are truly an inspiration, and you're part of my story. You knew me the first time I'd gotten clean, and then the second time when you had seen me at FERP, and I was probably at the lowest in my life. You kept giving me a little push, and you would just walk by and say, "It's gonna be okay," and I'd be in the kitchen, I'd just be crying, and then after I left FERP and I was in the recovery house, a sober house in New Britain, I'd see you every year at the recovery walk. You keep giving me that push, and you're like, "You're still coming, you're gonna be all right." And that, every time you said that to me in that program, you have no idea how much that helped me, so, thank you.
You're amazing. Definitely lived up to everything my awesome boss has talked about you. But I just have a question for kind of all three of you. I was at the Demas Run Recovery Coach, I don't know what they called it, but it was a few weeks ago up at CVH. And there was a bunch of recovery coaches that are actively working in the field, and there was like a little break the ice thing, and the guy suggested we talk about our agency and if we're supported or not. And out of the room of about maybe 30 coaches, I was the only one in that room that said that I felt supported by my supervisor as a recovery coach. That actually every day, how you doing? How are you feeling? How's your daughter? How's your recovery? You need to hit a meeting today? Take an hour lunch. You know what I mean? And like 1 out of 30, those aren't really great odds. So I'm wondering, like, what can we as recovery coaches do to help advocate for a more streamlined system of supervisors who actually know, how to deal with recovery coaches in the right way. You know,
Hire
can we be
recovery
writing
coach
letters
to be
somewhere?
supervisors.
So I think it goes back to what Andy said about advocacy, right? I think it goes back there and what Alexander talked about around this whole thing, right? So the thing is that first of all, we have to seek out whoever it is who is actually is supportive, right? So we have to be smart enough to do that. But now we're talking about kind of fighting City Hall, so we've gotta actually be the ones who move this to the place, right? And again, the fidelity of it, because the thing is that these supervisors and these people are me like 15 years ago, who didn't believe in, didn't think, didn't understand, you know, that there is room for recovery coaching and treatment, right? That still is that's a lot of work that we still have to do. That is the work. So if we're in a system and we don't have a John Hamilton who believes in recovery coaching, then we're not going to ever hire one. We'll never give one an opportunity to actually be a coach and get the experience, but then we want to say you got to have the experience first. How do you get it if you don't get the opportunity to get it? And so it really is that whole thing around, and it's about really educating people and really using every platform at any given time to be able to talk about it and talk about, because that's the topic. That's what Andy said. Just want to talk about like really how professionalism and recovery coaching, how is it beneficial, how does it work? That was the theme of that was the only thing you said. Can we talk about that? So it's a lot of work, but so you continue to stand out and step up. Someone else will join you, and when you see where there is some support, and then yes, you do need to ask for support, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was my concern. What I was trying to share earlier was like the real charge of making sure that you find a healthy system. Because again, there are other agencies that are threatened by recovery coaching. They think they're going to put them out of business. Not everybody embraces change, right? Some people like to keep things the same, even though we are not doing a great job with helping people recovery. So, helping people in recovery. Now, Asher, myself, we got a small group of C-Card coming together. We're going to actually do trainings for providers, for addiction treatment programs to get them on board. Because it was a wake-up call when we were involved in the first Multiple Pathways Conference. I don't know if people went to that. It was at Mystic a couple of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And there were only like 2 providers there. It was in Connecticut. It was embarrassing because we had people from like 22 different states show up to Connecticut, but we didn't show up as a whole, as a group. And so we have work to do. So I would say that as exciting as it is that this bill is likely to get passed, I'm hoping that it doesn't, what happens to us isn't what happened to New York, and that you've got to find a healthy system that will check in with you every day and support recovery coaching. And I do feel like, again, it's almost like the little Vietnams in Department of Social Evils. It's like people don't know what they don't know, and I think they just need to be educated and trained to see the value, and there's enough work to go around for everybody. And I think everyone has to feel like they have a valued role. Clinicians, recovery coaches, sponsors, everyone, and treat each other with dignity and respect. I'm a real systems kind of person by trade, and again as a family therapist, and I think any system has to be like a healthy family. You enjoy your mate more than your kid. You have each other's back. It doesn't mean the recoveries are infantilized, it just means they're going to come and go, but you have to have each other's back with your colleagues, or you're not going to create a safe, supportive recovery environment for those you work with.
Thank you, John.
And I think there was that blog that Phil wrote on No Recovery Coaches in Ireland that really just spoke to this as well. But we have work to do. We got to start with supporting one another.
Yeah, I'm glad that some great feedback. That's one of the reasons why we do these meetups. And we started a year ago because people who were coming through the academies that I was training were like, so, where do recovery coaches hang out? Like, I knew where my meeting was because I worked for an organization that had a Monday meeting. And I, was working for Brian at the time, and I had somebody who had my back. My advice to you is, whoever your supervisor is, let them know how. Oh, thank you for recognizing me, thank you for supporting her, and that you are blessed.
Oh, yes.
Very much so. It's a challenge for particularly for new coaches when they're working for an organization that doesn't really understand the fidelity, you know. And Phil even talked about it recently that he feels like the position is under siege. We're vulnerable right now because once the money starts flowing in, the position itself can be corrupted. There's people who don't really know what it is we do. So advocating for it is a really difficult thing. And again, it's kind of the foundation. This is why we do these meetings, right? And I would suggest that on those Wednesdays in the future, when you don't feel like going to a Recovery Coach Meetup, it's kind of like an AA meeting. You got to show up, man, because we need the support.
Yeah.
You know, we just need the support. Not professionally, the money will come, but the reality is that as coaches, we just need to really come together and make sure we have our back. Because some coaches don't have coaches, right? And the reason for networking, it's business related networking, but it's also like, hey, how are you doing with your own recovery, right? I got my guy over there. I got Carol over there is asking me about my recovery. So, yeah.
Maybe two more,
Yeah.
because we've got to wrap it up, we have
Yes.
people still on the clock.
I am a recovery coach in a team of recovery coaches who is supervised by a recovery coach.
Nice.
Led by a director who is looking to hire more recovery coaches in more departments. It's happening. Slow, but it's happening.
Sure. Thank you.
Where is that now?
Village for Families and Children in Hartford,
Great.
Women's
wow.
Reach program,
the
correct?
Women's Reach
Excellent,
program.
excellent.
And as far as I know, we are the only team of recovery coaches who is actually directly supervised by a recovery coach.
That's the navigator.
And I'm gonna do one of these from myself because I was part of that grant. I got that grant off the ground.
Good, Lenny.
Yeah. So, the last time I had said something to Maggie, she was my boss and she was leaving and I cried. But me and Maggie go way back. We started treatment together in 92. She's the same person she was in 92. But I see a lot of growth. I see a lot of things that she's doing. And I know as long as I stay with her, I'm going to be doing the same stuff. I used to always say, because Maggie was my director, and I used to always say, Maggie, you all right? Because I got your back. But Maggie had her own back.
Not according to Maggie.
we were so close, and it's like anybody did anything to her, they had to step to me. But she was all right. But I see you just went up to another level, man, and it's like you motivating me to do the same thing.
Thanks, Lenny.
Because I know how you was when you was out in the streets, and I know what you're doing now. And I want to do the same thing that you're doing. And I know you support me. Because John was like, we was at a picnic, and he said, oh, you going to drive the van? Drive the van?
He didn't even know I'd already told John.
I got their job.
If anybody that's going to drive the van in the community, it should be me, because I've been in the community over 50 years. So I'm so grateful, like she said, I'm grateful for Live Out, because I started my way in 1992. And I'm always be grateful for Live Out, because it helped me change my life. But Maggie, you know.
Love you, Lenny.
Love you too.
Thank you.
And I'm always going to be there.
It's always a good Recovery Coach Meetup when there's tears. Always good meeting for people in recovery when there's tears.
Come back again next year.
Absolutely.
Same time.
I can't say enough how much we
February.
thank you for Liberation Partners. Thank you, Maggie. You are an inspiration. John, you're an inspiration as well. Thank you.